Right? Otherwise, let's just begin with what is the topic for today. So the topic of today is understanding the wound of the father on the life of us as adult children, whether we are a son or a daughter. It's very important to understand how the influence of a father has impacted our lives. And first of all, it's very important to understand what is family constellation, because there are some people who are very new to this concept as well. I don't know about Entriaz and Muhammad Hanif, you guys are signing up for the first time. So I would like to talk about what is family constellation and basically what is the kind of work I do. So I'm a generational trauma healer, and most of the work I have been doing for the past 9 years, I would say, is primarily healing my own ancestral and generational wounds along with my childhood wounds, because I had gone through complex PTSD in my childhood. Or obviously we didn't have language back then to name what was being experienced, but today in modern psychology and spiritual psychology, we all know what are those terms. So it was complex PTSD, which means being a sensitive child born in a system where there were multiple conflicts between extended family systems. There were feuds about money. There was a lot of narcissism, as I was talking to Rani about, a lot of narcissism in the system. A lot of curses were also there, obviously, because people didn't get along well with each other. Marriage template was completely broken. Many people were living unhappy lives within the system I was born into. And as a sensitive soul, I started feeling all of those overwhelming feelings growing up, and obviously back then I didn't know what it was all about. So as I went into my healing journey, I started to understand so much about not just myself, but where my family comes from. So I was exploring multiple different forms of modalities out there, right? There are multiple forms of healing tools that exist now, which never existed maybe 20-30 years ago when we were young. So none of that was really helping me to stabilize myself and understand myself. Family constellation happened when I was actually doing a lot of soul searching. I wanted to understand myself. I wanted to understand the world, because nothing made sense to me. All aspects of my life were basically, I don't want to call that word, but all aspects of my life were basically scattered. Right? The money reality, the health reality, relationship dynamics was that the kind of I was experiencing, how I was relating to my children, the internal atmosphere that I was experiencing, right? How I relate to myself was also not stabilized, not grounded at all. So there was a lot of questions that I didn't have the answers to. So family constellation basically looks at you not just as an individual. I mean, that's a sum of it. It's a summary I'm giving you out, because there could be multiple other ways to describe it. So family constellation actually looks at you not just as an individual, not just as a person, but a member of a system that had its own history. Whether it was good, bad, ugly, you belong to a certain system. One second, somebody is joining. You belong to a certain system that had its own patterns, its own beliefs. Often those belief systems are very ancient. They have been passed down generationally. Most of the survival instincts were also generationally passed down. So you are looked into, through the constellation work, you are looked as a part of that system. And that system, whether you understand it or not, consciously, unconsciously, has been having an effect, an influence, and impact on your life, on your relationships, on your health, on your money and success reality. Anything that has not been healed within the individuality of your parents and your grandparents and your distant ancestors, basically invisibly. So it's an invisible baggage I talk about. It's invisibly passed down to you, and you basically are burdened by destinies and stories, entanglements. Okay, I'll somewhere down the line when I'm doing these talks, I'll also talk about entanglements. So basically you are not even living your life. This is what constellation proves. You're not basically living your life. You're often repeating patterns and stories and traumas and tragedies of your ancestors that has not been healed. You could be replaying the money reality of your father. You could be in a relationship that's a recycle of what your mother went through with your father. You could be having a flare up, for example, of having a business of your own, for example, and not being able to take it any further. So it's like, what had happened in your system for you to recycle an experience? So through constellation work, it actually not just reveals where is it coming from, so the root cause. There is always a root. There's always a very hidden. So it's like you are like an iceberg. So imagine that analogy. You're like an iceberg. There are things that you can see. There are patterns you can see consciously, logically. You can, compartmentalize them. You can try and understand and give solutions to certain aspects of your life. So on the top of the iceberg, maybe you're able to handle some of the stories, some of the situations you have experienced in your life. But when we look at so through constellation, for example, we look at what is under the iceberg. So there are patterns, there are stories that have never been talked about. There are secrets, family secrets. And most of the system do not, it's okay, there are more people joining now. So most of the people feel loyal to not talk about those family secrets, right? And they become your story. Hi, Lena. I'm already into the topic, but
Hi, Shaista.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I apologize.
No, that's fine.
Hospital.
No
Thank you
worries.
for having me.
No worries. I mean, the recording will also be shared separately with whoever wants to, go through it again. So that's not an issue. But I'll continue from here. Otherwise, I can't go back now. Yeah. So as I was talking about what is constellation work. So constellation work actually, in a snapshot, frees you from these invisible baggages, frees you from these entanglements that began maybe long before you were even born, right? The trauma of, for example, your father, if he went through some sort of heartbreak, okay, so I'm just going intuitively into it. If he went through some form of heartbreak and somebody who he loved couldn't hold the love for him, and he had to basically shut his heart down or guard himself after that heartbreak, and then 10 years later, you are born in that system. So you're already experiencing a father whose heart is guarded, who no longer believes in love. And when you grow up and you go into a relationship where there is a lot of love and it looks like a true love, something about that is going to trigger your father. Maybe you won't get your father's approval. Maybe he won't bless you into that relationship. So what happens is that the flow of love, because of some tragedy and trauma of your father, has become a roadblock for you now. You can't receive, and maybe something about that gets to be sabotaged in your life, in your relationship later on. You may also not want to experience love when it comes to you, a safe love. So you may end up and choose a partner who is unloving, because that is the template you have received. Do not believe in love, or safe love does not exist, because it's not just your father whose heart has been guarded or heart has been broken. It is energetic heart that you have also inherited from your father now. And I've come across these cases, guys, where all of a sudden I had that knowing while I was doing the constellation process, and it was a learning curve for me also. So I have to acknowledge I learned through these cases as well. So it was like this person is going through heartbreak and is in a relationship, doesn't know what to do about it. It gets to be rejected in subsequent relationships. And when I look at the system through the constellation work, what comes up is that the system has gone through heartbreak. So identify where it comes from. So that becomes the root cause. So we see it's the father's heartbreak, and where the belief is also formed that love will not stay. Love will not remain there, or it's unsafe to fall in love. So what happens in such systems is that it becomes a forbidden love. Even if true love comes, people will not believe it. People will never open their heart towards it. So because these are some of the cases I've done recently, so that was coming to my mind because the topic is about father's wound. So that also happens, and we don't know what isn't allowing love to come in our life, or a safe, loving, gentle relationship coming in my life. So we have to see what happened to have caused that. So the founder of Family Constellation, he's an amazing healer. His name is Bert Hellinger. He said it's the father who leads a child into the world. So the mother creates the child, right? But it's the father who takes that child into the world. So if any one of you feels anxious, unsafe, unable to make decisions when it comes to anything related to the external world, external reality, if you feel blocked, if you feel that there's no strength in me to take that forward movement in life, if there's uncertainty all the time, if you feel frozen when there's a life's decision that you need to make, anything to do with the external world has something to do with you and your relationship with your father. So money, reality, your self-worth, how do you look at yourself, decision making, so I've got men in my circle right now. So as a man, how do you identify with masculinity is actually an impact of your father on you since childhood, right? So as a girl child, because we are girl children for our fathers as well. So how do we perceive men? What do we believe about men? Do we feel safe around men? Do we welcome men in our life? Or do we remain guarded? Do we trust men, right? Do we trust our inner masculinity also? Because we are both inner, so we all have inner feminine, masculine polarities inside of us. So the masculine, so if I'm a girl, the masculine polarity that I inherit from my father comes from his masculine lineage. So if that masculine lineage was disconnected with each other, so my father was disconnected from his father or from his brothers, and there were conflicts, there were arguments, there was hatred, there were judgments, right? So which means the masculine lineage that I as a woman have inherited is conflicted, is restricted. There is lack of trust in masculine energy, and I as a woman will feel that I had no structure, I have no power, I have no strength to take my life forward because the masculine side of me is unhealed. So I'm trying to make it as easier for you guys as possible, yeah? And maybe you can ask me questions later on. I'm open to answering any of the questions and doubts. If you want to share any personal stories also, I'm happy to hear that. But just stay with me because I'm going very intuitively. I've got so many notes, but I'm not even reading my notes right now. Yeah, okay. And on the other side is my feminine side. So if as a woman, as a girl child, so that was a topic for last week where I was discussing about the mother wound. So if my mother was disconnected from her feminine lineage, there is some trauma, there is something unhealed over there. There was suppression, there was women violence, abuse in that system. So the feminine part of me is also going to feel something similar. I'm going to recreate the feminine wound that I had inherited from my mother because of her feminine experiences. Yeah. So this is how we go into the world, either connected to it or disconnected from us in our life. Okay. I'll just take 1 minute of break. Is that making sense? Anybody has any questions so far before I move forward? Yeah. Guys, I do talk very fast. Okay, I have to acknowledge. So please tell me if I'm going too fast or if something is not clear, right? Because I have an ADHD mind, so I talk very fast. Huh? Rani, what?
I have a question.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so you told me that the external world is more or less what your connection with your father is.
Yes. Yeah. The direction of life.
I don't have a connection with my father, but my external world seems okay. Like I'm good with my career. I'm good at talking. All the things to do with outward. I've always been okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm very confused in that part. So
yeah. So see, our father represents the masculine energy. He's not the only masculine energy because it's an inheritance, right? So before him, there could have been masculine energies who were...
I have a doubt. The doubt that I'm coming to is, I was not brought up by my father. When I was born, my father left from home and he was probably in Dubai or I don't know where else he went.
Yeah. So who brought you up?
After I was one, he left. I
Okay.
think around I became one. And then I met him maybe once or twice when he came to India for like 10-15 days to visit us. And then I meet him only at 6.
Recording in progress.
Sorry, I had not
1
even
to
started the
6
recording.
years.
Sorry, I had to start the
1 to
recording.
6 years, it was my father's brother who brought me up.
Okay, and how is your connection with him?
It's very deep. It's good. I can't connect with him now as much as before because his family doesn't like that I connect.
Yeah. So in
But
a way,
otherwise it's
he became the substitute masculine energy for you growing up.
yeah. So there is a question is what I'm getting to is it's about my father. There have been a lot of issues or many constellations that turned up that my father may not be my father. So I'm having those doubts right now. So
Yeah, I know. I remember you've mentioned that before.
yeah, so I haven't worked on it till now because
Yeah,
I
I've
don't know
never
whether the
seen
reason
you
never
doing.
came up
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Yeah.
it popped out in some constellations. And when I look back, I did not know that for 6 years he wasn't at home. It is a recent discovery to digest the fact that my dad wasn't with me for like 5 to 6 years. And the reason that afterwards, I don't know, like he was not a person who communicates. So basically, we never, bonded. But there was no direct
Connection?
hatred or anything of that sort. Just the fact that he and mom fought. Other than that, he's been good. Like he's been providing. He never existed in our space. But I think I had a whole a created idea about him probably when we childhood, like a bubble.
Really?
So the bubble bursts now. So I don't know whether he ever wanted to be in my space. Was it because of he was not really my father? Because he never makes an attempt to connect back with me for the last 25 years, which is not normally possible for a father who's
25 years is a long time.
yeah. So then this could be directing me to the fact that I don't know if he's actually my father. So
we can actually constellate that if ever you
put it in words like that.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that from you before, but obviously we have never constellated to come to any understanding.
Never worked around that space because when I keep thinking, when I go outward, and I'm more masculine a long time before. Now, okay, the shift has moved on quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I have good friends with men. All that side is good. I don't have that problem. Marriage was very good. Although it broke, the 4 years was fantastic. I could never complain about it. After that, I've had quite stable relationships. Although the fact that the marriage cannot happen, relationships were good. I can't complain. There was no abuse, nobody verbal abuse, no physical abuse, nothing of that sort.
Nothing
of
that
they
sort.
couldn't take it into a marriage for family reasons. So that's very confusing, when I look at the fact that I'm not connected to my dad. 25 years is not in my space. He's abandoned me completely. He's cut me off my
correct.
All
But
that
Rani, something is coming to me and I want to highlight that. It's very important to understand that when, for example, some form of disconnection or absence happens between a child and a father, life actually tries to allow us to have that completion later on through other masculine experiences. All right, so it's called corrective movement. So it's something that I've come across many times, that life actually throws experiences and opportunities where this person who could not experience masculine energy fully in their childhood because of XYZ situations, either there was a divorce that happened between the mother and father and the child got split into two, so loyalties are now split. Half of the consciousness of the child is with the mother, consciously, unconsciously, and half of it is with the father, or the father unfortunately had a young death. Those stories also exist, right? So the life itself is also at the service of us. If we come to understand that life is also trying to sustain us, and unconsciously our bloodline, whether we are connected to that or even disconnected with that, for example, if he's not your father, that's why I'm saying that. Unconsciously also, at a very spiritual level, the bloodline that we are actually connected to also tries to preserve us and protects us. So we are already sustained invisibly by these larger forces and larger systems that we understand or we do not understand. So there is always a corrective movement that happens, like a repair of your first disconnect with the masculine energy, happens later on. So maybe your uncle, your father's brother, became that corrective repairing. So for me personally, in my childhood, that was also true. My father was very disconnected, very unloving, very much distracted in other responsibilities of his family of origin. So if guys, you don't understand family of origin, it means that the family that he was born into. If he's too loyal, if he's too entangled in his own family system, and he is not individuated fully out of it because of obligations and responsibilities and beliefs that he has to provide for them. So when he creates his own system, he's not free. That is what I mean by this, right? So he is not individuated in his adult years, and maybe for 40, 50, 60 years never individuated, and they don't know they are not free. They're still stuck in their own families of origin. So that was the situation with my father. And I remember when I was 2-3 years old, my uncle from Pakistan, he migrated to Dubai and he started living with us. So he was more of a present masculine figure, father figure. He used to take me out, get me chocolates, drive me from Sharjah to Dubai, take me to his workplace, spend time with me, right? So that is what I mean by the repairing movement, the corrective movement, right? So what your father was not able to give you, somebody else is going to be provided for you through life circumstances to make that movement, if we allow it. If we remain guarded, right? That is what I mean. The love that comes to you, the protection that comes to you, you may not even welcome it. So that is what I mean by healing the father wound, going back to the first wound, to allow the new movement to happen in its first place. Otherwise, we keep recreating the same trauma of disconnected father in other, relationships. So it is not just a man who we disconnect from as women. It can be our employment, it can be our work, it can be the boss or the manager who we connect with. We may connect with our authorities in the same way as we connected with our father, or not connected with the father, right? So we have to see what went missing in that relationship. So let me go further into this, Prani. Maybe you'll understand more as I move on. Maybe a few reflection points also I would like to give it to you guys, as we are moving forward. So what did these are reflection questions. We can talk about that towards the end, 10-15 minutes before I move on. So I want you to reflect, and if you have a copy or notebook, you can also write that down. So the question is, what did your father taught you? So it means your experience with your father. What did it taught you about men, about the masculine energy? Regardless of the gender, it's okay. What did your father taught you about masculine energy or about men? Maybe I'll give you 5 minutes also to reflect on that before I move on. What did your father taught you? What is success? Andreas, are you with me on this? Any confusion? Yeah? Okay. Great. And guys, before I end up this awareness talk today, if anybody is getting triggered, if anybody has any question, please, they're all welcome, because these are, very triggering topics for some. So what did your father taught you about masculine energy, about men, about success? So what kind of experience you absorbed from your father about what is success? About authority. So authority now becomes government, the social systems we connect with, right? Our bosses, the corporate company we work for, right? That is what now represents authority. But authority also unconsciously represents how we connect with our father, or how we could not connect with the father. So if I feared my father and the connection was not safe for me as a child with my father, I'm going to fear my authorities also. All the authorities that I will get to experience moving on as an adult. I may feel very anxious connecting with my boss. I will feel very anxious connecting with any aspect of the government, policies and things like that. The government of my country will also intimidate me, make me feel unsafe, just like my father's experience. So all throughout the world, I'm talking about generally how we perceive authorities and governments is how we always were able to relate with our fathers. Think of it. Whoever has that disconnect within their own countries from their governments is the same disconnect that's projected that way because of the father wound. And the father wound is not just about the father, it's about the masculine wound, right? The masculine energy we have inherited. So, our uncles, our grandfathers, right? Great grandfathers. So, if they had gone through wars, because there were wars that happened, if they had gone through migrations, if they had gone through imprisonment, I mean, I come across all these complex histories in family systems. If they had gone through, atrocities, if they had gone through any form of losses and tragedies, the masculine energy gets disconnected. What we inherit are survival instincts, fear, uncertainty, lack of direction, right? So it's very important to understand what our fathers represented for us. So maybe when you are doing this reflection question, what did your father taught you about masculine energy, about success? How do we perceive authorities in our life? How do I look at money? Right? Are we afraid of losing money? Unconsciously, it means losing the love of the father or losing the presence of the father because it was a loss, right? So, money also carries that trauma of how we were able to relate or unable to relate with our fathers. How we are able to manage conflicts in our life, right? It is actually very important. How we, so what do I mean by strength? Do I feel strong enough in my life? Or do I feel weak, vulnerable, having no structure around me? Do I feel safe in the world? Guys, whatever resonates for you in this, huh? I'm open to that. What did your father taught you about the love of a man? You can ask me once again if you want me to repeat it, but these are all reflection questions. Then additionally, and tell me if I'm going too fast also, what judgments or story about your father still lives in your heart? That's the most important question of the day. What judgment or what story about your father still lives in your heart? Maybe take a minute to write that down, guys. Oh, Andrea's got disconnected. Andreas, you got disconnected. I was asking about one very important question as a reflection. What judgment or story about your father, yeah, what judgment or story about your father still lives in your heart? That is a very important reflection question. What judgment, story about your father is still in your heart? And is that story connecting you with him or disconnecting you from him? We all have those stories, guys. I mean, it's a very human experience to go through it. Okay.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure,
The last one.
That's why I was repeating. It's a very important question. What judgment or story about your father still lives in your heart?
Okay.
And is that judgment or story connecting you with that energy of your father or disconnecting you? Is that story which allows you to fall into his energy and take him fully in your heart? Or is that disconnecting or repelling you, swaying you up?
Okay.
Yeah, very important. And it has nothing to do with gender also. As girl or boy, men and women, we we will not be able to feel safe in this world if that disconnection remains, if it's not healed. We will look for safety in things that are very harmful for us also. So what do I mean by that? It means that if somebody is going through addictions of some sort, has addictions, there are multiple forms of addictions, right? Somebody is like maybe, smoking or on drugs or alcoholic or workaholic, right? All those are forms of addictions. Means there is some disconnection with the father. The child does not feel, man or a woman, has not felt safe and fully attuned by the presence of a father. So many times I've seen in my experiences, the child has gone into addictive behaviors in their adult years because of some trauma or story in the system that has not been healed, either with the father, or if the father was completely disconnected from the child in the form of early death or in the form of a divorce or a split between the parents, the child is excluding the father and being loyal to the mother. So consciously being loyal to the mother after that split and unconsciously siding with the father. This happens all the time. So am I looking at my father through the eyes of my mother? Yeah, Alina? Oh, sorry, was that a mistake? Because you raised your hand. It was a mistake, huh? Oh, okay, sorry. I thought maybe you want to ask anything. Okay.
To
So,
ask, not a mistake.
you want to ask?
It's a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Like, could the mother wound and father wound be inverted if the mother took the actual leadership role in the child's life, for example?
No,
Like, if the no?
no. Give me an example. That will make it more easier for me. Give me not a
Yes.
hypothetical. Give me an example.
I'm going through your points. And by the way, thank you so much. This is such an interesting presentation and topic. And I see that you have such in-depth knowledge. So I truly appreciate your generosity in sharing with us.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
And
Thank you
thanks
so
for
much.
having me. I feel like as I go through them, through the fatherhood issues, the topic that you mentioned, government authority, that I feel they are more connected to my mother somehow. Like I used to have it, but I felt they were connected to her, and she was the more masculine energy in the
Correct.
family in the sense of the leadership. But I'm not sure if this, maybe it's my conscious or rational analysis, and
That,
maybe it's not in
that
the
can happen.
family system.
That can happen clearly because if your mother was in the masculine energy, in the
Yeah.
leadership energy, so even though she was a woman as a gender, as physically, her energy was masculine. So that still becomes a masculine wound I'm talking about. Why your mother had
So
to become that also clearly shows there was some form of disconnection of your mother, maybe with her own father or the masculine energy in her system. Something might have created that pattern for her where she had to embody the masculine energy within herself in order to feel safe. So that has
understand.
become your pattern. So that is still a wound if you look at it, a wound of the authorities, right? Which means her
Yes,
connection with her father could have impacted her and then created that pattern where the authorities, for example, or the governments are also feared.
that makes a lot of sense actually, because her father abandoned her and divorced her mother and abandoned both. So this
Yeah,
disconnection makes a lot of sense.
yes, yeah, see, I told you. So there's
Yeah.
always that reason. So we go back into it. So, like I said, masculine, feminine energies are energies. And it also, so you said the word inverted. Yes, what happened in her system where the polarities of masculine, feminine energies have been reversed and inverted? It also talks about some form of dysfunction, some form of incompletion in that system. And it also talks about why your father was not able to take that leadership role. Why was he so passive and laid back? Because these are always dance of polarities. They can't be two masculine energies in a household. One has to let go of something in order for the other one to be in that space, right? So
Right.
a father who probably feared being more of a man attracted a woman who also had that resonance, who also had that wound, but was able to take it forward. So somehow the family went on, yeah. They were able to pass on something or the other, but it's still an inverted situation. And this has become
Yes.
very
Thank you so
common
much.
nowadays, right? Where these
Yes.
we see that all the
But a
time.
lot. This is alarming to me as a woman,
Yeah, I
honestly.
always bump it so many times into, feminines who are very much in their masculine energy. And sometimes it helps, but sometimes it becomes very unhealthy for them and frustrating for them.
I agree. And it can lead to addiction, at least on the workaholism side, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
lack of
being,
trust.
like,
And lack of trust with men, basically.
yes, yes. And like this hyper independence as well, and saying we don't need men, which I think is completely
Yeah.
crap, excuse my language. But it only deepens the gap between
We are both against it.
female and yeah, like it's
But
so bad.
it's not
It's so
true.
bad.
It is bad, but that is the work we have to do. Can I go
Yes.
back into, because I used to be in a masculine energy and I didn't know about it,
Same.
right? And had
Yes.
so many multiple health issues. We do that work to consciously move back and trust our own inner feminine, and we allow the right masculine energy to come back because that exists.
Yes.
It exists. There's a I mean, that's another topic. Maybe I don't want to get into that because it's an entirely different topic.
We divagated, but thank you so much for replying to my question. It helps a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So the question to ask is, what if the deepest father wound isn't always about what happened, but also about what was missing? And what was missing becomes the longing for us as we navigate our life. Whatever was missing in that relationship, it becomes the shadow aspect of us. So if I reject my father because he was absent or he was emotionally abusive or controlling, I internalize that. Maybe this is the idea I have about my father, that he was controlling, he was abusive, and I create a judgment. So that question I asked, what is it you judge for your father, right? What judgment? So that judgment is going to make me stuck. So that judgment is going to sort of go into my shadow aspects, and I'm going to bring in more of those experiences from the external world in the form of maybe work, in the form of my external experiences, my own inner masculine energy, and experience more of that. So I may call in partners who are more controlling because that is a judgment I had about my father, and he may also had that perception about his own father, the masculine energy. So whatever I judge, I experience more of it. And that is why in family constellations, we bring that, whatever the reason is, to the surface, and we try to dissolve. I mean, not 100% of judgment is going to dissolve in a session, but it's a work in progress. But there comes a time when you accept your father the way he is, having his own human life, having his own incompletions with his father, with his mother, having maybe have to go through a childhood where he was not allowed to be a child, where he had to grow up becoming independent, maybe when he was just in his puberty, like 12, 13, 14 years of age, and had to take care of himself. So, where is a time to be playful? Is there a time to have that healthy childhood and healthy teenage years? Or am I uh, just on, propelled into the journey of surviving myself? Or maybe because the father is absent, now I'm the oldest son or oldest daughter, I have to take in the position of my father to make sure the family doesn't dissolve, the family doesn't collapse. My mother, the only parent now available to me, doesn't collapse. So, in order for me to make sure that my mother survives and she doesn't collapse and she is available to me, maybe I have to go into the world and start working and becoming independent at an age where I was supposed to be carefree, where I was supposed to have, everything coming to me easily. That's the trauma I'm talking about. So whatever I judge in my father becomes my shadow aspects, and whatever is hidden in my shadow aspects is going to be recreated again and again energetically in various forms and various experiences in the form of people or experiences or situations. So when we think of father, the father wound, let me just sum it up. The father wound is the emotional, psychological, and sometimes intergenerational impact of a father's absence, inconsistency, emotional unavailability, harshness, rejection, criticism, over controlling, or something that the father had experienced himself and has not talked about it, not healed it, not resolved it in his own space. And that unresolved hidden trauma becomes the baggage for his own children. What he doesn't express, that emotion, that story that he has hidden inside his heart and has not dealt with it energetically. So this is called epigenetic transference of trauma, which means emotional transference. It's an emotion that he has not resolved within himself. Maybe he blames his mother, maybe he blames his father for the kind of life he is living. So if he feels miserable inside, or if he feels he's struggling too much in life, and that's the judgment he has towards his father, and he has not resolved it, not accepted it fully, and pushes it away from him, is spiteful about his father, he's going to recreate those experiences in his life all the time. And the child, if there are 3-4 children, one of the child, or maybe all the children, are going to be impacted by that energetic, unhealed emotion the father is carrying inside in their lives. This is called epigenetic transference of emotional blueprint. So we inherit not just the physical gene, scientifically, we also inherit the emotional blueprint, the mental blueprint of our ancestors. Here in this case, of the father. Sometimes father is physically present, emotionally he is absent. And that was the personal situation I had gone through, where he was physically fully present, but he was emotionally very disconnected. Sometimes father loves deeply, and he simply doesn't know how to express this. So trauma doesn't have to be a huge event or an incident. When we hear the word trauma, trauma can be as little as that disconnection the child feels in his heart, in his space from the father. That also becomes a trauma for the child. Sometimes father himself never experienced nurturing, safety, protection, attunement from his own father. And he doesn't know how to connect with his own children. So when he has his own children, his children can trigger those shadow aspects also. So if my father had gone through abuse by his own father, or criticism by his own father, or if he felt he had to take care of his own father, so becomes parentified with the father, when he has his own children, he will not allow autonomy maybe to his own children, because that is what he did not have for himself. So when the child wants to explore the world on his own terms, this child is going to trigger the father, because that is exactly what he could not experience for himself. So why do parents get triggered by their children? Is because of what they could not experience themselves when they were of that age, the same age. So when I'm doing these healing processes and something of this sort comes up, I tell my client, can you allow that part of you? So if you are having issues with your child who's 12 years old, and if he's asking you for, toys, or if he's asking you for something and he's a desire and you don't want to give it to him, so, and that's causing a rift between you and your very young child, and you're blaming him for making you unregulated. So when that person comes in my space, I see, okay, tell me what happened to you when you were of that age. Were you allowed to experience your dreams and desires? Was there a freedom to choose what you want to do with your life? Did you, so whenever you demanded anything at the age of 11, 12, 13, was your father able to provide you for that? And oftentimes a client would say, no. He was not generous when it comes to money because he wanted to do more of savings, maybe, right? I'm giving you very hypothetical examples now. Or he didn't had enough means to give me what I needed as a child. So I was not given the kind of toy I desired. So now, because I've not experienced it for myself, and when my child asks me for something of that sort around the same age, I get triggered. So you understand how the shadows and the epigenetic trauma comes to the surface, right? What does father symbolizes? From the family constellation perspective, I'm just reading my notes now before I miss out on anything important. Father represents our direction in life. So oftentimes if somebody comes and says, I feel lost in my life, I don't know what to do about my life, I don't know about my life purpose. Guys, please, this is one very important thing it came into my mind. If we are getting too much into spirituality, I've always seen, and I'd say that for myself also, because I was also too much into getting into spirituality. It means I'm searching for the missing father. Anybody who's too much into spiritual world and spiritual woo-woo talks and things like that feels ungrounded in the world, in the 3D matrix, and is searching for the missing father. There's another very beautiful thing that I want to say. If somebody is, so these are the cases I've done. So I want to give that out to you. If there's anybody who's a smoker and cannot, let go of that smoke, it also means that as he's smoking, he's trying to connect with the missing father. Whether it's a woman or it's a guy, does not matter. I've always seen whoever cannot quit smoking is actually trying to remember how it must have felt to be attuned with the father. So looking for the missing father through spirituality, through smoking, through drinking, addictions I was talking about, right? Trying to make too much of money. So no matter how much money comes to you, you feel it's not enough. Always looking for success in everything. If you feel fear of success or fear of failure also, I mean, these are different things that people come with. I have a fear of success, fear of failure. Again, disconnect with the father. Unable to make decisions in life, father won't. Finding no structure in life. So if, for example, I'll give an example of myself. There was a time when I could not create structure in my healing practice. I'm a teacher of family constellation as well, right? So in my earlier trainings, I didn't have a proper structure. And then some of the students started telling me, Rani was in one of those batch. Some of my students started telling me that, there's no structure in your training. And I was like, my God, I'm doing such a good work still. So because what I was doing was I was going intuitively, but there was no structure. And after that, it got me thinking, let's build a structure, which means unconsciously, I was tapping into my masculine energy finally. So when you have no structure in your life, no direction, no protection, so you feel you want to have support of some kind, you feel unsupported. Again, that speaks about how your father wounded you, how he may also not have felt that support from his system. And it is becoming your experience now, feeling lack of support, having no healthy boundaries, right? Anybody, so who violated your boundaries in the first place? Oftentimes, it's the father who violates the boundaries of their children, boundaries of their own partners, your mothers. So, us home, I've always seen this, guys. A home will not feel safe enough for the women, for the children, if the father is ungrounded, if the father is an unhealed, unregulated person. It will create a dysfunction atmosphere for everyone. The mother also adapts to how the energy of the father is in that place. If you have confidence in yourself, if you have the courage, if you are able to look at life with a sense of purpose, and if you're not able to create that purpose for yourself, it means some disconnection with the energy of your father. I talked about authority. So authority is another thing. How do you identify yourself in the outside world? How you relate to you inside yourself is the mother in you. So your emotions, your inner beliefs, your inner thoughts, anything to do with your internal atmosphere is your connection with your mother. Anything to do with your perception of how people look at you and how you look at people, it's coming from the father's perspective. So we heal that. Discipline, which also means Are you sabotaging your career? Are you sabotaging your health? Are you sabotaging so anything self-sabotage comes from the disconnect of the father. Are you passive aggressive in your life? That also comes from the wound of the father. The perception of the outer world is the same energy as how you could relate to your father or not relate to your father. Your career, healthy career also. So I've spoken about career. So how you are able to create your own career. Are you jumping from one career to another? It also means you're still searching for some validation of your father, right? In many ways. And of course, there are different layers to it, but I'm just telling you hypothetically what could be the reason. Healthy masculine energy, which is an embodiment of all men and women on this planet. How do we perceive masculine energy? So when we connect with the energy of masculine energy, have we ever experienced a healthy form of it? Or are we afraid of it? Are we scared of it? So as a man, am I able to fully uh, be available for my partners, for the world in a grounded, regulated way? Or am I swaying here and there? Am I still searching for something to land myself into? So that means something about you and your father has not been established fully. Something about that remains incomplete. So I'll very quickly, just give me 1 more minute and then I'll, open question and answers because I want to finish this very important thing. There are different kinds of father. Absent father, emotionally unavailable father, critical father, a father who's too perfectionist, wants everything to be perfect, a father who's controlling, a violent father, a father who was addicted himself and was not available. He was present but was addicted to something. A father who was depressed, right? A father who was workaholic. Father who never protected your mother, never made your mother feel safe. Father who was physically present but emotionally disconnected. So the impact of such fathers on sons is that how do I become a man, right? So I'll give you a very quick example of a case study. A client constantly changed careers. Nothing felt right. During constellation work, he realized, I have never felt seen by my own father. His career struggle wasn't simply about work. It was connection to a lifelong search for approval from the father. So sons want to connect with the father to understand their own gender. And if that disconnect remained, he may feel disconnected within himself as well. Very quickly, let me tell you about the impact on daughters. That was the impact on sons, a very brief one, obviously. Impact on daughters. A daughter often learns from father, am I important? Am I valuable? Can I trust men? Do I deserve protection from a man? Am I enough? Can I receive healthy masculine love? So it's very important to understand that how as daughters we experience men in our life has everything to do with what remained incomplete with our connection with our father. So possible patterns in a daughter from the father's wound could come in the form of fear of intimacy. So she will not feel safe with those men, may not want to experience intimacy, may have issues with that. Choosing unavailable partners, attracting controlling relationships, people pleasing, fear of abandonment, difficulty trusting men, overachieving to earn approval, seeking validation. I think that was about it. I think let me just wind it up. And guys, let me know if you have any questions, if you want to share anything from your personal space. I'll be more than happy to answer them before I leave.
Yes, I have a question, Shaista.
Go on, Andreas.
Okay, so the thing is, I am gay, so I am attracted to men.
Hmm.
And also I'm a counselor, I'm a systemic counselor, and I just attract female clients. And since
Okay.
for a very long time, I had a problem with my masculinity. I was not living my masculinity.
Huh, huh.
And since a half year or something, I feel more connected to my masculinity.
Okay.
But you think I attracted the clients because I was not connected to my masculinity?
You mean the why you're attracting the female? No, because you carry that feminine polarity. Maybe there's something about your energy. That is what I'm feeling. Is safe for the women to show up in your clientele space.
Yes.
There could be. So I'm tapping into your energy right now as you were mentioning it. I feel you're a safe
Yes.
man to be around because you also
Yes.
embody safe feminine energy inside of you. Oh my God, I just
Exactly.
felt that is your inner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that
Mhm.
makes other women feel safe who are in
Mhm.
that gender. So they turn up
Mhm.
more in your space because they know that you will understand. Because there are not
Yeah.
many, I have to also acknowledge, Andreas, there are not many safe men healers out there or
Mhm.
counselors out there.
Yeah.
Something about that also creates distortion and lack of trust. So maybe they end
Yeah,
up
true.
in your space for that feeling of safety that you
Okay.
provide.
Okay.
And
So
if you
how
have
can I
done inner
attract
work,
men?
huh?
So how can I attract male clients? Because I think it's important to also work with men,
Of
and I would
course.
love to work with men because for me, working with women is my comfort zone, and I
Yeah.
want to work with men.
Hmm. So what I'm feeling, and of course, unless and until we don't do the process, I can't say for certain, right? But we can look at what is excluded. So if men are not coming in your space from a systemic lens, what I feel is something about masculinity or men is excluded.
Mhm.
Some exclusion.
Mhm.
So maybe you need to do more work on what are the underlying factors why men are not coming in your space, right?
Mhm.
They're not coming. Maybe there is some exclusion or some lack of safety. Maybe that you feel also dealing with them in your clientele space. So you are
I
safe
think
for
that's the
the,
truth.
yeah, I don't know. I'm just tapping, I'm just channeling. So safe for the women clients to appear, but maybe in your own space, you don't feel safe for masculines to appear.
100%.
Okay, so that's the work you have to do. I'm glad I was able to tap into it.
Thank you so much. It goes so deep and it's such an interesting topic. And thank you for your knowledge.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you so
really,
much.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for appearing because you just came from nowhere on my Facebook. But you can join my
Yes,
community
I
as well.
just found you today. I just found you
Just today?
today by
Ah,
accident. Yeah.
by accident. Yeah. So you can join my community. It's easier when I'm making these announcements because I've got multiple different topics to talk about and let it out from my system so that I feel lighter. That's my
Yes, I would
agenda.
love to be part of the community. I would love
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be.
I think I've shared the WhatsApp link, but I'll do that again. And I can share my WhatsApp number so that we remain in contact. And if you have any questions, we
Okay.
can, discuss it. No worries. Thank you so much, Andreas, for
Yeah,
your.
thank you.
Thank you. I
Thank
got
you.
a different perspective channeling into you. Anybody else wants to share anything, any questions, any feedback on the question that I asked? What judgment about your father is still in your heart? Or maybe you can reflect it later and maybe you can WhatsApp me, if you want to share anything or just keep it with you. And my take on that would be to drop it, to drop the judgment. Maybe at some point I can speak and so that is from Alina and to Andreas. So you're talking to Andreas about it? Can you read that message? Okay, hi, this is Alina. Maybe at some point we can speak and I can refer main slides. Yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Yes, I would love to. Yeah, let's do it.
Do you do online work, Andreas?
Um, I just started. I'm still in the school. I'm just still in the education, but
Huh.
I graduate next year.
So you're learning
So
family
it's always
constellation? You said systemic.
yes. I'm also learning family constellation, but just this really a really small part. And
Hmm.
if I want to go deeper, I have to educate myself further to
Absolutely.
go
It's,
in deeper in.
constellation work is a very deep work. I mean, I have been learning it and I still keep on upgrading myself for the past 9 years. I've not stopped not
Yeah,
learning constellation. It's like actually becoming a doctor or maybe something like that. Or
I
you
think so.
find,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Alina, you are in my community, right? Yeah, so Andreas will join and that, I mean, that will be easier to connect through the community then. Any
Sure.
questions? Any questions on the father wound? Anything that came up for you as I was connecting to it, connecting with the topic?
I would like to ask you, Shaista, a question. You mentioned that health issues or how we approach health is related to the father or the mother wound?
It's actually related to both,
To
or
both.
oftentimes both the parents. So if the father was unsafe, mother becomes unsafe also. But it really depends on your unique childhood experiences. That is very important. So what I'm saying is very general, but oftentimes if there has been complex issues in your present life, things not making sense in various aspects of life, it could indicate you are carrying incompletions from both the parents. But there is always one parent who could have injured you more than the other. Yeah, is that
Okay,
making
thank
sense?
you.
So it could be one parent who you need to go back to more than the other parent.
I
Because maybe the other
understand.
parent, yes, maybe that other parent was also wounded by this parent who wounded us also.
Understood.
Yeah. So maybe,
Thank
yeah,
you.
if yeah. So that is my take on that. Any other questions or any feedback on how the whole awareness talk was? And maybe if you guys are in my community, I would like to hear from you all guys. I do put all my awareness talks on YouTube. I also do have a recording of it. So if anybody wants to share that with anybody else, I mean, I'm happy to share it. I do have a YouTube channel and I'm trying to do more work on that.